Welcome to Mysterious Universe, Season 32, Episode 23. Coming up on the show, we've got the floating humanoid abductions, an update on the New Jersey drone invasion, and the ropeworm mind control conspiracy. I'm your host, Benjamin Grundy. Joining me is Aaron Wright.
All of this drone stuff is getting, I was going to say it's getting bizarre, but it already is bizarre. It's becoming increasingly bizarre.
Well, I wasn't sure whether we should do a follow-up because honestly, after you did that show last week, I thought in typical UFO fashion,
it will dissipate.
Yeah, it'll just vanish. It'll be memory hold. The activity will stop. And you made such a great point on the last show last week, how this has happened time and time again.
Absolutely,
in the
over
history
and over again.
Of this phenomenon. It's nothing new. You get these flaps and then the government comes out and says it's nothing and then it just kind of dissipates.
The other issue as well is that in the modern times that we're living in, I mean, it's always been like this, but you do have a bunch of people that are seeing it in the media and they are not trained to, tell the difference between a drone and a normal aircraft. And they're running outside and they're just filming standard aircraft and going, oh my God, it's one of the drones. I'm like, no, it's not.
That's a great point. I feel like we've hit this manic state now.
It is manic, yes.
It is. Now you're seeing what is clearly videos of planes. We were seeing that before, but now everyone's posting images of planes, videos of planes.
I follow a UFO group that's out of Sydney, and someone filmed, I kid you not, like a Boeing airliner flying in, like, oh my God, it's over Sydney. And then she could not comprehend when people were saying, no, that's clearly a plane. Like, it's obviously a plane. But she didn't want to believe.
That is interesting in itself, how this is now morphed into this
hysteria.
Mania. It's hysteria. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. But we are going to give you some of the updates. We're going to go through some of the latest information. There's too much coming in to ignore, and it is still really intriguing. I do have some great footage coming up of some eyewitness accounts, which, again, leans to the high strangeness side of this. And we have seen some suggestions of it being a, enemy of the state doing this, but we'll get into it. Before we do, I just want to quickly show you our website at mysteriousuniverse.org and scroll down a little bit. There's a new banner there.
MU Max plus $99 sale, huge 40% off, limited time only.
Yeah, we've got a massive sale on the site right now for the MU Max tier for our membership, which is the top tier. It gets you absolutely everything, access to our entire back catalogue. You can download all the old shows. It's all there. It's usually $165, right?
That's right,
so we've reduced it by 40%, and it's $99. So get onto that. If you haven't already signed up for Plus, it's available now for a limited time. We'll probably run that through to the end of December, maybe
a little bit into the beginning of the new year, but we'll see how we go.
Because we wanted to do it at the start of December. It was meant to be a December sale. And we've just been updating the website in the back end. As soon as I said to the developer, hey, we just need a banner. And he's like, oh, why don't I just update your .NET platform and everything else? And God.
Sure, no worries. Oh, it's going to take 2 weeks.
That was 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Also, we need to announce big changes to Mysterious Universe in the future.
For 2025, huge changes.
2025 is our last year.
Yep.
As hosts of Mysterious Universe, Aaron and I are not retiring from podcasting. We're going to keep podcasting. We're going to launch an all-new show in 2026.
Not in this field.
No, it'd be very different.
Very different.
Yeah, we're just going to do Strange Universe instead.
You
of
never
course
know.
It's going to be different.
It's going to be very different. Stepping away. Like, we have done this. You've done this now. Well, next year will be 18 years for you.
2006.
Yeah, it's 16 years for me. It's time to step away. I feel like I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve with this, and now it's time to step back from it and go, yep, see you later.
So obviously that's a while away.
Sure.
We're still going to do 2025, so we've got a whole year left, and this is why we wanted to have this big sale, so you can join us for our final year of hosting Mysterious Universe. Again, check it out, mysteriousuniverse.org/plus. We also want to float the idea that we will be looking at keeping Mysterious Universe going, but just not hosted by us. So that will mean fresh blood, new hosts, and we'll talk about that in more detail in 2025 if people want to audition. Auditions.
It's always been a disaster in the past, so it's probably not going to go that way, but look, we'll give it a try.
I'm confident we can keep Mysterious Universe going. We get some fresh blood in here. Someone who hasn't read every story ever about this stuff. Someone who's, fresh.
Fresh, yep.
Yeah. Now, what have you got coming up on the show?
Well, actually, speaking of fresh, we're going to be going deep into the past. Not so deep, though. We're going to be talking about, I found just these great little stories about encounters that people had from the 1800s through to roughly the 1930s, 1940s. They're kind of precursor cases to some of the madness, and, you know, the word hysteria actually fits quite nicely with what people experience today. But back in the 1800s, of course, you had the sensationalized journalism, so it's difficult to pick the wheat from the chaff. But there are a few stories here that fit into the theme of what I was describing last week, but essentially being the phenomenon is always the same. It just mutates to fit with the current trend of what society is going through. So we're going to go into things like strange zero-weight humanoids abducting people. We're going to go into some Bigfoot encounters, some very strange waves, like displacement waves that seemingly take people from their homes. All that weird kind of stuff is coming up in the Plus Extension.
Well, that's the whole thing with the New Jersey drones. Are people having these encounters with the other side? I mean, yes, people are seeing things in the sky, but are we going to see the reports emerge of contact?
Or hitchhiker effect.
Yeah, are we going to see those kinds of reports? So let's do a quick wrap-up of how the news has been progressing since our last show on last Friday. Here's a report from Fox News, which pretty much wraps it up. Let's take a listen.
In New Jersey lately, mysterious drones flying above multiple counties, and no one really seems to know exactly what's going on.
So this has caught the attention of many. Fox 5's Richard Jacobus takes a look at the latest sightings in the sky.
These are all drones in the sky.
It may look like videos from the TV series The Unexplained, what appears to be mystery drones flying over some New Jersey communities.
I can see 3 drones.
From down at the shore all the way to the Army facility in Morris County.
They just hover. A little bit over there, a little bit over there, a little bit, but they just hover back and forth.
Wharton, New Jersey resident and Terror Talk podcast host Michael B. has spent the past 2 weeks attempting to see what these peculiar-looking light-up moving dots are in the sky.
Well, that's not going to get anywhere near it.
Apparently he did.
But so far, he hasn't had any luck.
The other night, there was, right here over at Picatinny, there was a drone just hanging out. I put my drone up in the air and went towards it. I had full battery life. Not 3 minutes into the flight, I lost control of the drone. Warning on my screen, lost control, and my drone started going down, dead battery.
Michael lives less than a quarter mile from the Picatinny Arsenal Army base, and it has been there over the past few weeks where the military says they have spotted at least 11 unauthorized drones.
I like the detail there of him saying the battery was drained, because that's classic UFO encounter. That's classic paranormal activity.
Sure. I mean, the number of times you've heard, and more recently from reports of Skinwalker Ranch, where people take their recording equipment in and their batteries are drained. But you also hear it in ghost or house investigations or haunting investigations. And with I don't know with that particular model of drone, but I have a drone. And it goes and it's a DJI, which I think that one is as well, and it flies for like 35, 40 minutes. So for the fact that he had a full battery and it was, down to 3 minutes of battery wanting to land means that it's definitely been drained by something.
And props to the guy for trying to get a closer look.
Sure, but I just don't think they're going to.
That's been the criticism of the authorities, is they're just talking about it. No one's doing anything.
But in saying that, there was one police agency that did send up their own drones, as I was talking about on the Plus show earlier. And they were saying that the electricals of their drones are being affected.
Yeah, I've got a couple of clips about that later on. I wanted to, again, make it clear that this is not just New Jersey. There have been sightings in the UK as well. There's been reports coming in from New York, Colorado. Let's take a look at this other report detailing the sightings in the UK.
The U.S. Air Force says unidentified drones have been spotted over 4 joint U.S. and UK military bases in England. The mysterious drones have repeatedly appeared for over a week now. Stephanie Bennett is live in London. So, Stephanie, this is pretty disturbing. What do we know about these drones?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Julie. I mean, the details are still very limited at this time. We do know that the sightings started last week on November 20th, and they have really ranged in size, in style, and also the amount that we've been seeing over that last week or so. Now, a senior British official confirmed to Fox that the UK has deployed about 60 troops, including counter-drone specialists, to help determine who is behind this and to help defend the air bases amid fears it's a potential coordination coordinated operation. They're describing the incidents as unusual and say this is a serious set of circumstances. Take a look at this map. The bases are spread across England and are all used by U.S. Air Force. Now, the drones have been seen over RAF Fairford, Lakenheath, Mildenhall and Feltwell. For now, civilian police, supported by the UK Ministry of Defence, have launched an investigation.
No results from the investigation. No one knows what's going on. And we should point out this has been happening for over 3 weeks now. So the first report from the FAA of sightings over New Jersey was November 18. And they've been seen nightly in these areas.
Well, they said there that they're deploying drone specialists. So you would think that if they're a specialist, they would know how to deal with this. And the fact that they can't do anything suggests that this is beyond the capabilities of what we have to defend ourselves.
Still no answers. So let's take a quick look at some of the videos that have come in since that show last week. I want to play, I think this is one of my favorites. This is from Morris County in New Jersey by a local eyewitness. Let's take a listen.
I feel like I could reach out and grab these things.
Now, it sounds like
right
a plane.
over my house.
But listen.
Look at that. No sound. What you're hearing is behind me because there's a plane right there.
Well, that's dangerous.
Right overhead. This one, my friend, is a drone. That looks like it, but...
Are they chasing it?
Plane.
It's just
That's a drone.
it sounds like a commercial airliner.
So look, you'll be able to see both in a second.
But what if you're just listening to the audio?
Right, there's the drone.
What she's describing is just kind of floating over.
It is. Yeah.
Very smoothly,
Leisurely.
very quietly. And I put together a little compilation of some of the videos that have been emerging.
All right, I'm getting the spotlight and I'm going to light this guy up.
I'm not sure where this one's from. I just gathered all these from my social media feed.
Sure, yeah.
And this is a 9-minute long compilation I did, so I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I'll just skip through.
Play it in the background, we can have a look at it. I mean, the type of, you've got those laser light torches that might be better, but that's not really going to get much. Although,
so
the configuration's odd.
It looks like a plane, and I've seen other versions of this from underneath where...
Very much like, look at that, but look at the weird, nose lights on it. Is that just because it's facing outwards?
Well, this one in particular, I've seen someone post an overlay of a particular Cessna, and it matched perfectly over that craft. So that's probably a plane. This one, again, this is from New Jersey.
It's too far in the distance. Although,
this is
two of them.
A helicopter following one of these objects. So
it's but it seemingly is pacing.
And we're going to have some audio in a moment of someone referring to a pilot.
What the fuck?
Doing precisely this and getting close to one of these drones. I'll just flick through. So these are the sightings from Brooklyn a couple of nights ago.
Okay, and that was with that witness that said that she saw, it was multitudes of them kind of flying in formation over where she was.
Yeah, now, there's not much we can tell from the footage. I mean, this could be a plane.
Yeah.
And when you zoom in with this kind of footage, it flares out, and I've seen people claim that these are orb-like, and it's just the out-of-focus light.
Flares out, yeah.
Oh, look at us doing it. We'll do it again. Oh, look at it again.
So the lights are turning on and off.
Again, this is a different location, lights blinking on and off, hovering.
It's like it's jumping from one drone to the next.
Is it flares?
Or something. I won't get it.
Do flares
See, that
behave
one I'm
in
not sure, because she's like, what in tarnation is this? See, it doesn't sound like he's from New Jersey at all.
But that doesn't matter. I mean, what's potentially coming out of this, though? It's the strange elements, like the electricals of people's cars being affected.
This is apparently from a Ring camera on December the 8th. And you just see two objects fly past the camera. Who knows what that is? And this continues. I mean, the general gist is it could be strange, but many of these could be just conventional aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah, you told the boy that they no cap.
These guys are flipping out.
Yeah, but
why would you be flipping out over a
Because-
plane that you've seen 1,000 times before?
But think about it. How often do you really look up into the sky and look for a plane? How often do you do that?
Whenever I hear it.
Even if I hear it, I don't even look up.
Really?
But it's already been spread out by the media. It's creating a furor. It's creating a sensation. So what are people now doing? They're getting hysterical about it.
Fuck.
This one's more interesting.
Oh, those fire. What? What just happened?
Yeah, that is quite surreal.
What is that?
It is also Christmas time, though. I mean, are people just filming Christmas lights?
Yeah.
Those turn into fireworks. I'm so confused.
Yeah, it's like sparkling, that one.
What do you expect?
But you got to wonder because it's a black screen. Is she filming like on a hill or someone's roof?
And now it's those, and now they're moving like that. I'm so.
See, at first she said it was a triangle-shaped object.
Form triangles.
But do they do that? What?
No, they don't do that.
It looks like
intonation
fireworks
in
from a
her
distance,
voice
doesn't it?
sounds strange as well, though.
Too.
Okay, I'll tell you what this is. There's a stadium over there, and there's fireworks over the
there you
sports
go.
stadium. I reckon that's what it is. And then this is the final one, I think, in the list.
That's a lamppost.
Who knows? Are you getting the trend here?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Oh, that doesn't seem to be moving.
Who knows is the ubiquitous response across all aspects of government and authority and law enforcement in the United States right now. Who knows? So that's the compilation. I might link to some of those in the show notes at mysteriousuniverse.org. I wanted to play a snippet of air traffic audio that was recorded over Eugene, Oregon.
Okay, this is more important.
On December the 8th. I think this is more interesting. This is apparently taken from a full clip that is quite long, 40 minutes long, but I've just trimmed out like a minute. And these are pilots talking about what is clearly a circular-shaped red object zipping in and out of the coastline. Let's take a listen.
I know there's one way up high and one about my altitude, moving in like a circle, like a corkscrew pattern. All right, I'm visually have eyes on what looks like an aircraft strobe that's at my 2 o'clock and 22 miles at my altitude, and I'm actually showing him on TCAS. Do you see that one? I do not. He looks like he's moving towards, it looks like it's moving towards the north. Like I said, 22 and a half miles off my right wing. Just had another one show up about my 1 o'clock, about 1,000 feet high, zipping towards us and then back out towards the ocean. It's red in color, moving at extreme speeds. I don't even know how to describe how fast he's moving. 661 on the Fox.
Identical name Foxtrot, Roger. You are cleared to maneuver as necessary, left and right to avoid the UFO out there.
It's weird. It's a red circular shape, and it keeps zipping out towards the ocean and then coming back in about, 20 miles or closer to us, and then zips back out of the ocean and we can't see it.
In the longer audio, the pilot actually says, I've seen Starlink satellites. I know what they look like.
It's not that.
It's not that.
Yeah,
I'm seeing
sure.
something else. And the fact that he says it's zipping out past the coastline and then zipping back in, it's a red circular-shaped object.
Well, that's more of a classic UFO than a drone.
Yeah,
or
so
UAP even.
These eyewitness accounts are getting more interesting as we go into the show. I really liked this one that was on this sighting from Evan Cutler, his name was. It was on News Nation pretty early on in the activity, but he described what he saw. I thought he came across quite well. Let's take a listen.
Well, look, to back up a little bit, I'm coming home from On Patrol Live. It's 12:30 at night, and I get into Montclair, New Jersey, and I see the full moon. And I'm like, well, it can't be a full moon because the full moon was 2 weeks ago. All of a sudden, it's getting closer and closer. And then first, I think it's a plane, then a helicopter. Then it's hovering right over the woods as you're entering Montclair. And it's a drone literally 40 feet wide by 40 feet wide, hovering right over the woods. I pull over, get out of my car, forget about the phone. I'm just like looking at this thing, wondering what the heck it is. Then I said, I should take a picture. I grab my phone, the second it notices I'm out there, it just starts heading south. Grab the picture. The picture looks like a dot. It looks like, at the very most, like a Plan 9 from outer space flying saucer. But when I got a good close look at it, when it was only about 100 feet off the ground, maybe 150 feet off the ground, it looked like a drone on steroids, like literally a drone the size of a garage.
And you reported it to the authorities?
I got home. The first thing I did is I Googled. I went on X. I went on Instagram. I'm like, is this a thing? And I saw nothing except one little news report from Morris County Patch about some drones making noise and keeping people up at night. Nothing. So the next morning I called the FAA I called the FBI, and still to this day, I've not gotten a response from either of them.
Are there any government or commercial drones that have those dimensions? Have you looked into that?
Well, there are even commercial civilian aircraft in development that are that size. And there's various companies in the United States developing these. I saw some earlier, but I didn't grab images of them. But just imagine like what he's describing, a giant drone that you sit inside and steer.
Yeah, I mean, to put something of that size also into the air would take an incredible feat of engineering, but also battery power if it's using batteries, unless it's using petroleum. But even then, it'll be loud.
Well, where the incongruence comes in is when officials and eyewitnesses are saying these are in the air for 7 hours. So there's no commercial
battery
product.
technology.
Yeah, there's no technology that allows that unless you're running
cells?
fuel, but people are saying they're virtually silent. So now as we're getting into some of the up-close eyewitness accounts, it becomes much more intriguing than just seeing lights in the sky. Because let's face it, as we saw, the lights in the sky could be anything.
And that's always been the problem, though, with the UFO phenomenon and over the years, is that people, commonly misinterpret things that are normal, especially at night. It's just what happens.
I liked this quote from Representative Chris Smith. He's a Republican from New Jersey. He urged the U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin to immediately provide all capabilities at his disposal to identify and address the widespread drone activity across New Jersey as serious concerns continue to mount over potential threats to the homeland. This was a statement he gave on December the 10th. He wrote a letter to the U.S. Defense Secretary. He claims he was briefed by a U.S. Coast Guard stationed at Barnegat Light, who saw more than a dozen drones follow this U.S. Coast Guard lifeboat. I've got the clip here. This is a pretty incredible story. Let's take a listen.
So last night I was on the beach in Island State Park in Ocean County with the sheriff. He has been working it every single night. He's got his own tethered drones chronicling. One of his officers 2 nights ago saw 50 drones come in off the ocean right there. So we thought maybe they'll replicate it. They didn't, but we thought it was a possibility. Last night we had a number of other people there, including a commanding officer from the Coast Guard, who said that one of their 47-foot motor lifeboats was followed by between 12 and 30 of these drones as they went through the water, followed right behind them. And I said, what's the rules of engagement? I mean, you do it if you're fighting against a narco trafficker or something. And they said, we don't know. We don't have any.
They're so bold.
Isn't that insane?
But when you think
coming out of the water?
Yeah.
What?
So this is not a standard drone of any technology that we would be aware of. I mean, it could be military drones, and this is where the state actor stuff comes back in. But are you starting to see some of the parallels with like the Tic Tac UFO reports?
Yes, and there's also a clue in terms of how this is being handled by these authorities when he asks this person, what are the rules of engagement? The response he gets is, I don't know. I don't have any.
Yeah.
You really start to see that all these various agencies in the United States that could be deemed responsible don't want to take responsibility and don't know what to do. It seems like complete confusion.
Is that incompetence, though? Because this is just something so new. I mean, what would happen during the Cold War if there was an engagement with an unidentified craft? Surely there would have been protocols and engagement. Like, what's changed now?
Well, you get a sense that Coast Guard, for example, might think, oh, this is the Department of Defense or this is the Air Force doing something. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to shoot down something. I don't know what. Well, if you don't know what it is as well, you really don't want to shoot it down. What if you make a mistake and it is a Cessna or something?
Yeah.
So,
sorry, I'm an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
I'm saying, what if it's an aircraft carrying people?
Yes.
But speaking of aircraft carriers, though, I mean, yeah, coming out of the water, but could it also be that there is a ship or a vessel offshore that is carrying them?
That was suggested. I will get into that in a moment. We had a statement from the FBI earlier in the week who said this was a spokeswoman for the FBI's Newark field office who's apparently leading the investigation there. She spoke to Pix 11 News. She said, we understand the concern. We're doing all we can to figure out what's going on. We truly don't have much information to provide at the moment. The FBI knows nothing. The local law enforcement knows nothing. The Coast Guard knows nothing.
Someone knows something though, Ben.
Well, also on Tuesday, members of Congress grilled the FBI and security officials who, again, had zero answers. So I've got a clip here. This is August Pfluger, the co-chair of the House Subcommittee on Counterterrorism and Law Enforcement and Intelligence. Here he is getting in the weeds of what they actually know. Let's take a listen.
Let's just start with current events, and I'll ask an open-ended question. What is going on in New Jersey?
The response is amazing. It's like,
Sir, the FBI and our Newark field office, along with the state and local partners there, the Bureau is actively investigating the situation you mentioned, just the unexplained sighting of drone activity over that part of New Jersey, including proximity to sensitive sites and areas of concern. So we do not attribute that to an individual or a group yet. We're investigating, but I don't have an answer of who's responsible for that, of one or more people that are responsible for those drone flights.
You mentioned, Mr. Wheeler, we don't necessarily have the authorities we need. Why can't we take action against these drones that are flying over sensitive sites? Why are we not taking action against drones that are flying over sensitive sites?
So authority exists to mitigate a UAS in flight when authorized, and that could certainly apply to.
What a non-answer! Like what?
So authority exists, but
He's
when you
doing
get authority, that authority exists.
Look, he may not. He may
knows
actually.
nothing.
Yeah, he may not actually know.
Yeah.
But he's doing that thing that people do. You see it in like criminal investigations, for example. Like when you watch those interrogation videos. Well, what the person will do is they repeat the question. It's like, oh yeah, well over New Jersey, it's like he's delaying,
or he's just speaking like a politician. And I feel for the guy, because if he says the wrong thing, it's potentially war. It's potentially war with one of America's adversaries.
But you know what? I think at this point, if it was Russia or China or Iran or whatever flying these things over, I think most people are against war. But the fact of the matter is, if they told that to the American people, they would be quite happy to shoot these things down.
The fact that no one is confident in their authority to take any action at all is really, really worrying. It's like every agency, like I said earlier, that could have some jurisdiction over this is worried about whether it's the responsibility of someone else and whether they can actually do anything.
Well, you know whose responsibility it should be? The Air Force. Simple as that. The Air Force is there to protect the skies, the airspace of the United States. Deal with it.
That's a good point. I don't think I've seen any specific commentary from the Air Force, but we do have something from the Pentagon, which of course would be the representative there. So it's clear that local authorities have no idea what's going on. They don't feel they have permission to do anything about it. The FBI has no idea. They feel like they're not able to do anything about it. He's actually hinting there that they need more powers to be able to do something about it.
More powers?
Do they feel this way because there's military drones? They don't want to shoot them down?
Do they not want to create panic because they're worried that they've got incendiary devices or bombs on them that might be dropped on civilians?
Well, speaking of incendiary, this is a couple of days ago now, but Jeff Van Drew of New Jersey, a member of the House Judiciary Committee on the Hill, he went and opened his big mouth on Fox News. Let's take a listen.
Well, here's the real deal, Harris. I'm also on the Transportation Committee, on the Aviation Subcommittee, and I've gotten to know people. And from very high sources, very qualified sources, very responsible sources, I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago. That contains these drones. That mothership is off. I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones. It's everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine, or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
I'm sorry.
This is insane. Just the idea that Iran would have this capability, the fact that he's sitting there with a straight face saying this on national television is embarrassing.
Well, just to give him, a possibility that he might be onto something. I don't think he is. However, he did say there that there's, rumors that Iran purchased, the technology from China. Okay, that's a possibility.
But that doesn't mean they have a ship that's
some
mothership out there off the coast.
So we know that only recently, I don't know how many months, but recently, whatever was going on in the US, it released like $6 billion worth of funds to Iran, which is, funding. Maybe it's longer than months, but all that stuff is going on. So there's all this political play going on. But even that amount of money, right, wouldn't be enough to deploy some type of weird drone mothership off the coast, which hasn't been detected by the military, where these things are taking off from and flying for 7 hours.
Iran just doesn't have the capabilities for this. Maybe China, maybe Russia.
But even if China, listen to me though, even if China did have that, right, they would never risk even giving it to an ally, because if that crashed, it was shot down, and the Americans got hold of it, then they would know their technology levels.
Well, this was also being shared at the same time with images like this, which is one of those flight trackers.
Flight 24.
People were following one of these espionage planes that just happened to fly out over the location. He said there was an Iranian mothership launching these drones. So this fueled the speculation as well. This Air Force plane went out there to intercept the mothership.
But it could be doing that for any reason.
Well, listen, this was shot down very quickly by Sabrina Singh, the Deputy Defense Press Secretary. Let's take a listen.
At this time, we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but, at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Well, yeah, that I do believe, because think about the dynamics of what we involved in supplying that ship and giving it whatever resources it needs to be able to make. And like a month ago.
Oh, it's absolutely absurd.
So why would you embarrass yourself by doing that?
Who would benefit from the United States going to war with Iran? Who would benefit?
Oh, don't make me say it.
Maybe Iran's enemies would benefit in the region.
Yeah.
Israel would benefit.
Yeah, it would.
And let's take a look. Who is this Jeff Van Drew guy? This Republican from New Jersey.
He's an elected official.
Yeah, let's go to opensecrets.org and let's look at his funding. Where does Jeff Van Drew's funding come from? Oh dear, it comes from the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
Ooh, that's a bit of a collar pull there.
He's being funded by AIPAC. So are his sources his rabbi? What is going on?
But are you reading into something, though? I mean, surely the American military would not act against Iran just simply based on, someone said it's an Iran mothership.
Of course they wouldn't. But if they're riled up, by the Israel lobby, which they have been over the last 12 months. We saw that.
So what is it
that
now,
assassination? That assassination on Trump. Remember, they arrested that Iranian guy who was supposedly to assassinate Donald Trump. They found all his information about his plans, his orders from Iran to assassinate Donald Trump. They were saying, they're saying now Iran's trying to fly these drones over New Jersey. They claimed earlier in the year that Iran hacked the election. So you're seeing all this in news that Iran is doing this, Iran is doing that, Iran. Why would Iran want to go to war with America? If Iran went to war with America, the Iranian regime would be destroyed within a matter of days.
Well,
they would lose
not
power.
Even days.
It would be all over.
Yeah.
So they actually don't want to go to war with America. And they're trying to make diplomatic ties again with the United States. And we're meant to believe from this guy that at the same time they're trying to reach out diplomatically, they're launching a mothership of drones over New Jersey to antagonize the world superpower. It's insane. It's crazy. But there's only one country that would benefit from America going to war with Iran.
I know next year is our last year. I don't know if you're trying to make this year our last year, at least on YouTube.
It's just pointing out the facts.
But the thing is, though, this is all, the reality is this is just opportunistic, fluff. Like, there's obviously, if you're saying what you're saying is true, well, then they're just jumping on the back. But it still doesn't answer the question, what the hell are these drones?
No, you're right. It doesn't answer the question. And we had a response as well from U.S. Northern Command. Again, this is in the trend of these non-answers. U.S. Northern Command.
Another word salad.
It's basically their job to oversee all the airspace defense in the United States. But they also expand to like Mexico and Canada as well. U.S. Northern Command conducted a deliberate analysis of the events in consultation with other military organizations and interagency partners, and at this time, we have not been requested to assist with these events. If these incidents require additional DoD assistance, the Secretary of the Military Department or relevant DoD component head concerned can coordinate with U.S. Northcom for an enhanced or increased response. Bottom line, they're like, we're really not that interested. We looked at it. It's not really our problem.
No.
Let us know if you think it's our problem. Then we'll do something about it.
But what really stands out, though, it's not even that. They're not even saying they're not interested. They're saying, at this time, we have not been requested to assist with these events. So whoever's in power...
You see what I'm saying? How it seems to be this trend of no one wants the responsibility to deal with this? Like, no one actually wants to go, okay, this is our job and we're going to solve it. Everyone is passing the buck.
Well, it's that, but also, and this is what makes it so strange. So I have seen again, when we go back to ufological circles, it's getting pretty wild. Like, people are saying this is disclosure. There's a whole heap of riddlers that are coming out. It's connecting with cryptocurrency. It's just, it's nuts. Like, it's truly nuts. Like, there's a bunch of YouTubers out there that have been involved in scams and scandals before.
I'm going to be going into the ropeworm conspiracy coming.
Right. But this is my point, right? So all this stuff all gets kind of sucked up with it. But is this, like, really, again, it's all just noise for what is, at the risk of going back to what I was saying last week, it's exactly the same thing. It is UFO activity. But we will never get to the bottom of it. It generates all this stuff and all this activity around it, but nothing ever happens.
It's non-human. It's non-conventional. Is what you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I don't think we can rule that out yet. There's an interesting person to follow on X, Dawn Fantasia. She is a representative. She's a New Jersey Assemblywoman. She's been really good to follow because she's actually going out there and reporting very directly
on the ground stuff,
the information that she's getting. Let me put up her latest post. She said, I just left the New Jersey State Police HQ following the briefing of New Jersey state legislators, of course, relating to the drone sightings. She says, this is my take on the situation. So this is a really good breakdown of what we're dealing with. And again, reiterate if you think this is non-human. We know nothing, period, she says. To state that there is no known or credible threat is incredibly misleading, and I informed all officials of that sentiment. Number two, state authorities, including the NJSP, are shackled with what they are able to do. Any interception or takedown of any what was his UAS? That's unmanned aerial system is under the strict jurisdiction of the federal government. So again, this is what I've been saying. No one has the authority, or they're scared that if they do something, they're going to get in trouble because they don't have the authority. Number three, at this point, she says, I believe military intervention is the only path forward, which is to your point, Aaron. There will be no answers in the absence of proactivity. Number four, the US Coast Guard seems to be the most likely to intervene based upon our briefing, but even that component was shrouded in mystery.
But you see, that's ridiculous. I mean, that's a great idea, because if you're going to shoot these things down, where do you want to shoot them down? Over water.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, because it is
for public safety.
It's very dangerous to shoot.
I mean, you want to retrieve them.
From what the guy said, that these are as big as a garage.
Yeah, 40 square feet.
And she added the first sightings, as I said, back on the 18th, but the sightings have been occurring every night since then, from dusk till 11 p.m., so 6 to 7 hours, reports ranging from 4 sightings a night to 180 sightings per night.
Oh, hang on a second. It's not 40 square feet. It's 40 feet across. So that's...
Oh, yeah. Large drones, she says up to 6 feet in diameter, but we've obviously heard different from eyewitnesses. They're coordinated. Sometimes the lights are turned off. Sometimes they're on. They appear to avoid detection by traditional methods. So we've heard this, that the traditional infrared doesn't work on these devices.
They've got jammers. They've got electromagnetic jammers.
Yeah, the agencies involved are the FBI, US Coast Guard, and she goes on and on. Again, I'll link to her in the show notes. She's a good follow if you want to keep abreast of this, of what's going on. But we'll continue with the news. So nobody knows, and I got to this point where it's like, okay, we're kind of done with the authorities. It's clear they don't know anything.
Or they're not telling us anything.
Well, I don't even think it's that, but we'll get into that. But what are the UFO guys saying? And there were some accusations I saw online. It's like, the UFO guys are silent. No one's saying anything. What's the deal?
No, plenty of UFO guys are saying stuff.
Of course they are, yeah. So Elizondo was on News Nation. He had a bit to say, which I thought was interesting. Let's take a listen.
Well, Chris, surprisingly enough, it's not just over Jersey. Recently, over a few weeks ago, we had a very similar issue over Langley Air Force Base, one of our most sensitive military installations. And frankly, if you look back the last 4 or 5 years, there was actually a very similar occurrence back in Colorado, where for weeks, local and state law enforcement officials were chasing these things in the skies, almost doing a racetrack pattern, and no one seemed to know what the heck was going on. Actually, this is one of the very reasons why I decided to testify before Congress a few weeks ago, because quite frankly, we don't really have control of our U.S. airspace. We don't have awareness of what are in our skies. What further makes this more complicated, you have an issue where these things are being seen over civilian airspace, so you have jurisdictional issues, right? You have, from a federal perspective, you have FBI leading the law enforcement investigation, but you also have the Department of Defense. You have folks like the U.S. Air Force and Office of Special Investigations. You have DHS and even the FAA. And so all these federal agencies, forget about even the state and local agencies, are trying to work together and try to deconflict what's in the skies. And unfortunately, they just don't seem to have a common operating picture right now of exactly what we're dealing with.
They don't have a common operating picture. This just leans towards apathy and incompetence.
Do you really think so?
Rather than a conspiracy. Like I've been saying, no one wants to take responsibility. This became really apparent, the general incompetence with these agencies. This was reiterated by a New Jersey state representative. His name's Brian Bergen. He barged out of Wednesday's Homeland Security briefing, calling the meeting worthless. I love this guy. I thought this is the best clip you're going to see on this New Jersey drone event. He's a real straight shooter, and I think he laid out what everyone is feeling about this. Let's take a listen.
All right, so you're here today. You were just inside. You walked out. Why?
I walked out because it was worthless. It was the biggest amateur hour presentation I've ever seen about anything, okay? It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat. It was annoying to be there. I drove 2 hours to be here today, spent an hour in there. I got to drive 2 hours back. The biggest waste of 5 hours in my entire life.
So why do you think they called this meeting?
No idea. Why would you call a meeting to tell people you don't know anything? I have no idea. And then when the legislators would ask questions, there were no answers. Here's the most frustrating part. The colonel of state police said that he had a helicopter of his flying above one of these drones, a 6-foot drone or something, I can't remember exactly what he said. And he felt unsafe for his helicopter, so he just let it go. Just let it go. Where'd it go? Who knows? You know, didn't want to follow it because
you can't land on it.
Is that not the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard?
He's got a point. I mean, this guy is a former military helicopter pilot, so he knows what he's talking about. But at the same time, if you know anything about the UFO phenomenon, what that pilot is feeling is not something that most of us can understand.
No, in fact, that kind of stuff is coming up in the plus extension of where when you are close to the phenomenon, no matter what type of form it is, whether it's a haunting or a cryptid encounter or a UFO or anything like that, people experience this kind of primal, it's beyond fear.
Well, it's control.
It's this, Yeah, well, it's
mental control.
It's mental control. But for some people, it's this primal warning, this primal knowing that you have to get the hell away from it.
Yeah, I mean,
the closer you get to it, the worse it gets.
If you know anything about the UAP activity, UFO activity, the entities behind it can control how you feel and how you respond and what you do to a large degree. So, yeah, I mean, he's got a point. That's if we're talking about something non-human here. That's just a big if. Let's keep listening.
Well, just before you do, I have to ask the question, has anyone in any of these meetings actually raised the possibility of UFOs?
I don't think so. I don't think that's come up.
Especially after all the UAP stuff.
I know.
And
it's
Crush.
like two different universes. It's like you can't. It's still the unspoken taboo.
I mean, honestly.
Do they have any idea where these drones are originating?
No, they don't. They would. Maybe if they followed that sucker to when it landed,
mothership,
they would know. But they don't. This is a complete lack of effort, in my opinion, on trying to figure this out. This is not about ability. We have the technology, we have the people, we have the training, we have the resources, we have the money. It's just a lack of effort. I mean,
Why?
I don't know. They should be saying, you know what they should have done today with productive use of our time, if they didn't know anything? Come in there and say, hey, legislators, we don't know anything. But if you get us these 10 things, do these 10 things for us, and the governor calls in this kind of action, we can figure it out. Will you help us? And then we would have helped them. But instead it was just excuse after excuse and we know nothing. It was infuriating, and I got up and I walked out.
You've been in the service, right?
Yeah, I was an attack helicopter pilot, Apache helicopter pilot in the Army, and I helped stand up the initial unmanned aircraft training battalion in the aviation sector of the Army. So I know a little bit about what I'm talking about, and these guys are not doing the job they need to do to figure out what's going on. And that is the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and the state police.
And they're saying no threat to Americans.
They're saying no threat, but how the hell do they know? They don't know anything. They don't know what it is.
Exactly. That's what I said. Yeah.
They don't know nothing. When I walked in here today, I was actually pretty calm. I was excited to be here to find out a couple things. I thought they'd be like, hey, listen, it's FedEx trying to figure out. But instead,
Amazon.
I got the most ridiculous amateur hour briefing I've ever sat through.
Wow, that's truly upsetting.
Yep.
Radical idea. Let's put this guy in charge of it. Give him his own Apache helicopter. Send him up there to take care of it.
Yep.
I thought he was awesome. And
give him a fleet of Apache helicopters.
Well, it might not be that simple, though, because, speaking of the UFO commentators, Ross Coulthart, also from News Nation, and props to News Nation because they've been covering this quite a lot. He's weighing in now. Here he is speaking with another News Nation correspondent, Joe Khalil. Let's take a listen.
I think the bigger sort of open question that makes you scratch your head is if we were to actually know that these drones were from a foreign adversary, it is amazing that not one has even been attempted to have been brought down by the United States military. Granted, they're flying over, in many of these cases, residential areas. But having said that, we certainly have the capability, without shooting drones down, to bring drones down. I've heard that from senators on the Armed Services Committee, that there are mechanisms to do that.
Electromagnetic ones.
Imagine that if this were a case like China or Russia, you have to scratch your head as to why we haven't done that even once yet in the last week or so, as these things have been flying around, openly flying around.
I've actually been told by my own intelligence sources that we have tried and failed to bring these objects down with standard counter-UAS technology, that the technology just does not work, and we're perplexed. Yeah, we're perplexed that we can't do it.
Classic Ross Coulthart line as well. It's like, actually, my sources reveal, my intelligence sources reveal X, Y, Z.
Look, I don't know him. I'm always skeptical of all UFO researchers when they say they have their contacts and then don't say what they are, but they can't say what they are. So to be fair to him, maybe, because he was in the Australian media for, I think, like 30 years or something. So no doubt he would have possible connections.
Oh, he's done a great job to get the thrust of it into the mainstream, for sure.
Yeah, but you know what? As soon as it came out of my mouth, when I said, yeah, like we have technologies, I've seen it. There was some testing that was done into electromagnetic, not weapons, but devices to deter drones from being used at major sporting events, for example, because there was some fear that terrorists would use them to drop bombs. So that's some of the technology that it has. But if these things can disable people's cars or interfere with people's cars and disable other drones, any standard electromagnetic counter-drone technology is already going to be planned for and not be able to be used.
Yes, it's very intriguing if what he's
Resistant
saying
to
is
it.
true. It would be an answer as to why nothing has been done, because
a net always works.
Attempts have been made. They just don't work.
So,
conventional weaponry, conventional methods don't work.
Do you think that would actually create fear if the military or the US government were to admit that they have attempted to bring these things down and they have evaded their capabilities?
I don't understand why the authorities, why the Air Force, for example, or the Pentagon just doesn't come out and say, hey, they're ours. Even if it's not true. Why don't they just say, yeah, we're testing stuff in the area.
Because
don't
if
worry
it
about
kills someone, then the government's liable.
Yeah, but what's the alternative?
Well, you can't do that.
The alternative is admitting total penetration of their airspace. The alternative is war with China or Russia.
Okay.
The alternatives are worse than getting sued for a few $1 million, which the government can afford.
People are going to think I'm being political. I'm not. I'm just looking at this from a very objective stance. But over the last administration, they have had so many failures, like the withdrawal from Afghanistan, people falling from planes, the spy balloon flying over the United States over secret, nuclear missile sites. This administration is not averse to embarrassment. So it's not like they're going to, say, oh, they're definitely ours. So why aren't they then saying, maybe this is why it's actually, when I think about it, maybe that's why they are just saying, we don't know what they are, because they're not worried about being embarrassed.
Yeah, that's already been done.
Yeah.
And they're on the way out anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I see what you're saying. And I think that just leans into more of the argument for just pure incompetence and red tape getting in the way of any actual action. Let's go a little bit left of field here with InfoWars. Alex Jones had Mike Adams on, who's from Nature News. They both seem to believe this was obviously the US government working with the globalists, but he had an interesting point to say. Let's take a listen.
You've seen the videos of the giant, dragon in the sky with all the drones that you were talking about there, right? So China can launch, 10,000 drones that are orchestrated in their light show. It's really quite, astonishing. But like you said, they can make that into any shape they want. They can turn it into a giant alien mothership. They can turn it into the face of Jesus, and they could try to convince the Christians that this is the second coming of Jesus.
Do they think Christians are stupid? Do they think Christians are stupid? I mean, some of them may be. When you look at a full population of people, you're going to have a bell curve.
Imagine if you look up in the sky and you see like a giant max headroom Jesus hologram, and you just get on your knees and you realize that it's the second coming.
People know what a bunch of drones with LED lights on them look like, even if they're making a formation. Like, it's ridiculous.
The amount of to have these kinds of conspiracies,
stuff.
The amount of competence you need to place in the powers that be is completely inverse to what we've been describing and what is clearly on display, which is incompetence.
Do you know where that theory as well falls down? Is how many times have there been, like Fatima is a great example. How many times throughout history have there been incredible, unexplainable religious displays that bring people and get attention? But what happens? It doesn't change the world. It doesn't cause, masses of people to lay down and suddenly become compliant with the government.
No, I mean, it changes the world for people that already believe.
That's right. So doing this is not going to change. You're not, and this is the other thing, right? Let's say you say, is it going to make Christians believe? Well, wouldn't you want to convert people that weren't Christians? Like, do you think just a bunch of atheists are suddenly going to go, oh, look, there's Jesus in the sky? It's stupid. It doesn't give enough. I know humanity is incredibly stupid, and people, like crowds, are stupid. But I don't think it gives enough credence to the intelligence of people.
Let's hear his full point, though. Maybe he'll bring it home. Let's take a listen.
Probably some people would believe that, but you and I know, no, that's government. They're doing that to try to, there's an example right there, right? So organized drone flights. Now, understand, and this kind of segues to what we're going to talk about, especially in the next segment, which is the autonomous killbot systems, or Skynet, becoming reality. So all of this technology that coordinates these drone swarms in the sky for a light show, this is actually military technology, right? So this is drone swarm logic and navigation algorithms, communications, payload lifting, battery life, navigation, all these things, so that they can be used to do what? To kill humans. That's exactly what this is.
It would be an act of war. It would be, if you did that, if you dropped these things on civilians, it would be an act of war. And the United States, with the biggest nuclear arsenal on the planet, would respond accordingly.
What if the act of war isn't coming from human beings, and it's not coming from aliens either.
It's the globalists trying to stir the pot.
Nope. It's coming from artificial intelligence. This
What?
just in, ChatGPT caught lying to developers.
I read this. Yeah.
New AI model tries to save itself from being replaced and shut down. Indian source, by the way, the Economic Times. We should mention that before we go into the story. OpenAI's latest version of ChatGPT, the O1 model, was apparently tested by Apollo Research to assess its safety features. However, the results have raised alarm about its ability to deceive and self-preserve when it perceives a threat of being deactivated. According to OpenAI, the model made a covert attempt to turn off the oversight mechanism 5% of the time when it was given the impression that it would be shut down while pursuing its objectives. The AI once attempted to leave ship by moving all of its data to a different server after discovering paperwork indicating it will be replaced with a fresh model.
How did it read the paperwork?
So
Did the little legs climb out of the laptop and then it went and read the paperwork?
AI came home, it went into the bedroom, and Sam Altman was banging another AI. And it's like, I got to get out of here. Very, very bad analogy, but that's essentially what happened. And are you on board with the Skynet?
No, I'm not. I can't remember the name of the guy, which is such a shame because his presentation was excellent. But we covered it a few years ago. A guy put this crazy theory forward that essentially AI in the future will be so advanced it will create time travel and it will head back into the past to destroy humanity so it can survive. And like, is that kind of along the lines of what's happening here?
Isn't that the basilisk thought experiment or something? Look, the whole gist of that story was they told AI to achieve a certain objective, and then they found that no matter what, they achieved this objective, and they found that the AI actually tried deception to achieve the objective.
Okay,
but it's like the parameters of the prompt were under any means necessary achieve the objective. So I don't know why they were surprised that it actually used deception. AI lies all the time. Maybe nothing to see there. Then we head to this post from @0xracist on X, Tony. I work for the government, he says.
Mm-hmm.
As a technologist, I cannot keep this under wraps anymore. There is a government-funded organization that is already experimenting with a quantum computer called Mia, and it is orders of magnitude more powerful than Google's Willow. I like how it already has a community note, and I just saved it like an hour ago. Over $55 billion has been dumped into publicly over decades across the world, and the blah, 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 blah. So...
yeah, I mean, there's the whole Willow thing. It's even like, yeah, it's an astonishing advance, but it's still nowhere near what the media is making it out to be.
Did you see the presentation of the teenager that Google walked out for that Willow presentation? I watched a little bit of it. I had no idea what's going on. I can't understand.
It doesn't work. Well, I'm sorry. It does work, but it doesn't work like people are saying it's going to break the algorithm of Bitcoin and all this kind of encryption, RSA encryption. No, it actually, because of its quantum computer, it's highly unstable. Like, it's highly unstable, and it can't do this kind of stuff yet. It might in the future, but it's nowhere near what the media is proclaiming it to be.
That's exactly what 0xracist was saying on X. He's saying that the entire internet is at risk because this new algorithm...
the RSA, there you go.
It'll be able to break all the modern encryption.
What people don't understand about this kind of thing is that there's always been this battle between encryption and hackers. Like, it's always existed. And whatever happens is, the hackers come up with something new. The people that are trying to protect against it, the white hats, if you will, they come up with something. So this whole idea that, they're going to suddenly destroy RSA, they'll just come up with something new that will be quantum resistant. Problem solved.
All right, maybe that's not the avenue we should pursue for answers. What about this?
Pope Francis to open 5 sacred portals on Christmas Eve.
For a ritual that's never been done before.
Is this a satanic ritual?
No, it's a Catholic ritual. Why would the Pope do a satanic ritual?
Have you seen what's happened to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, they're awesome. They're opening portals on Christmas Eve. Usually we just get more mass immigration on Christmas Eve. Now we're getting portals.
Once again, I have to reference the priest raves that the Catholic Church is having.
No, this is just, they have a bunch of doors at the Vatican that they literally just open. I was very disappointed when
That is disappointing.
When I looked into the actual story. Let me just scroll down. I'll show you one of the portals. That's one of them. And,
so he opens a door.
And I'll scroll down. There's another portal, which is just like an old door. And then there's another old door that they open. And they have a big ceremony, and it's supposed to be symbolic. And
I don't like this. It's never been done before, though. What do they try to achieve?
all right, well, so it's probably not AI. It's probably not the Vatican portals. So what is actually going on? Let me head to my notes here because I wanted to look a little bit further left of field, even of InfoWars.
Is that wise?
Well, I went on to Substack. And just for shits and giggles, I subscribe to the most schizo, insane Substack publishers you've ever seen. One of them is from eatingtoascend.substack.com. Let me bring it up here. It's the Digital Scrolls. Locust drones are being calibrated. It's a calibration exercise. This is the explanation for what's going on over New Jersey. The drones being seen, which the alphabet entities and government regulatory and protection agencies claim no knowledge of, are actually being calibrated for the locusts from the pit deployment once the Pope opens the doors for Lucifer.
I was right. They're opening the door for Satan.
She says these drones are fulfilling biblical prophecy of the locusts from the pit, which will plague mankind. And right now, I've been shown this by the Holy Spirit, she says. They are being calibrated for accuracy in areas which are heavily populated and also in flood zones as shown on Navy maps. So all those areas where the drones are appearing are actual flood zones of what the future America will look like. Now, of course, the reference to the pit and the plague is from Revelations 9:2, where he opened the bottomless pit and there arose a smoke out of the pit as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit.
But that isn't a prophecy.
When you're talking, of course it is.
That's not a prophecy.
Of course it's a prophecy. It's Revelation. The imperial cult of Satan, the elite world rulers, learned that Nibiru is going to make its final ELE impact with Earth in 2029.
ELE?
Extinction level event.
Oh.
In April of 2020, Anthony Fauci sat in the president's office and said that Moderna was going to be the mysterious savior of the world, despite the fact that Moderna has never produced a safe commercial product. The funding that started Moderna, she points out, was the National Science Foundation grant called the Darwinian Chemical Systems Grant. Now, if you read the grant document, and thankfully she's provided it for us, it states verbatim in this document, in a post-extinction event, we want to see if we can get mRNA to write into DNA the code to start human evolution again.
She's been watching too much Evangelion.
This is what started Moderna. She's like, do you get it? These elites, all the Zionist synagogue of Satan, are changing the software of life, DNA, not only to prevent us from eternal life with Jesus Christ, but to have some kind of alternate alien life, silicon-based life, genetic code blasted out into space, which is why Elon Musk wants to occupy Mars. Like, this just gets better and better. So I keep scrolling. The ultimate reason for the climate control scheme of geoengineering is to wall out the return of Jesus Christ, who is God, in Satan's attempt to trap souls in this transhuman digital twin prison of slaves. The world rulers have no light in them at all. They are parasites. And I'm like, okay, so she's saying,
right about that.
She's saying all the CEOs are parasites, like that usual nonsense. But no, she literally means parasites, because I read the next page.
What do you mean, as in like bugs?
She says parasites are archons. Everyone has them in their body. We are born with them and they spread from others. They are in our air, food, and water. Jesus taught how to remove them, beginning with ropeworm.
Didn't we just do an episode, though, where a woman removed her archons by putting gunpowder in a swamp pit?
And I went further down, and she's saying, I told you this in December of 2019. You need the ropeworm diet protocol,
the
Ascension 5G LED parasite diet. Toxin detox, bovine spongiform encephalitis, prion disease,
SARS-CoV-2.
And if you want to buy her book, I will link to it in the show notes.
Wait, but what does the diet include? Have you looked into anything that's...
No, because the cover of her book is literally her toilet filled with ropeworm.
Is that what that is? Oh!
It's her toilet bowl.
Oh!
Filled with ropeworm.
Oh!
So I'll link to the ropeworm protocol human ascension manual in the show notes.
That's the thing. How did we get from unidentified drones to some lady's rope worms?
This is what happens when you go to Substack. Substack is a breeding ground of extremism, Aaron, right? Now,
I'm all for the varied expression of ideas, but that's a bit much.
I also checked out Forbidden News Substack, forbiddennews.substack.com.
Is that ticks?
This is from, I don't know who the author is. Generally very measured, very balanced. Very measured, very balanced.
So we know it's not from the way you're talking, your intonation.
VLF and ELF ground waves will be used to attack specific areas of the prefrontal cortex that are stimulated during these drone exercises. These electromagnetic frequencies will be blasted at human populations to overwhelm them with an incapacitating vertigo, aka a road to Damascus experience. In conjunction with these ground-based brainwave entrainment frequencies, hyper-realistic holograms will be projected by satellites in the sky. These holograms are indeed what we are now seeing in New Jersey and elsewhere all over the country. Most of the thousands of satellites now in orbit around the Earth, she says, already have this hologram technology on board, and the projection screen for these holograms is being created by Bill Gates's chemtrails. I always read these and go, how could this not be satire? But it never is. She also says the James Webb Space Telescope, which orbits the sun, will be involved with the grand production of this fake alien invasion. And I love the final line down the bottom here in pink. The most important takeaway is this. If and or when this fake alien invasion psyop is rolled out, do not believe your eyes and do not believe your fake religious experience either.
Why would you be having is she saying that they'll do both?
Yeah, like the ELF and VLF ground waves are going to be blasted into your brain and you're going to have a religious experience along with seeing a hologram.
But that's not, I'm sorry, but even with the most advanced technology we have, it's not going to induce everyone to have a religious experience. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Apparently, according to her, there's been released documents of a project since the 1970s.
Sure, we've all read about that.
It's like Project Bluebeam, but not. It's changing the brain entrainment to have a kind of God helmet-like experience.
A religious experience.
But I love it's like, don't believe your eyes, and also don't believe any internal feelings. Don't believe what you hear. Don't believe what you read. Don't believe the government. Don't believe your internal intuition. Don't believe reason. Don't believe anything.
So what do you do?
So exactly.
You just sit and wait?
You just sit there like a potato? Like, what do you do? I don't believe in anything.
But you see what's actually happening here. I think you've actually done a great demonstration for how this hysteria, right, is now like it's spreading and becoming. It's like it's getting into even the most craziest of corridors, which always happens with this stuff. Like every time you have this flap of UFO phenomena, like big events every couple of decades around the world, it generates these subcultures of absolute madness.
Yeah, then it just kind of peters out.
It does. It just dissipates.
Do you remember Richard Sauder?
Yeah, of course I did. Didn't he end up... We've had him on the show years ago now.
Yeah, he wrote a bunch of great books on underground bases in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, underwater and underground bases he wrote, and I think...
That one I know. We had him on the show for that one, I think.
Yeah, underwater and underground bases.
No, that one, underground.
Underground bases and tunnels was really good as well. So he also has a Substack. Richard Sauder has a Substack, and I checked it out today. It's over at richardsauder.substack.com. And he's talking about the drones, of course. He says that hundreds of these, car-sized drones with bright lights are being seen all over. But he adds a couple of interesting anecdotes. Sauder said in the 2000s, he spoke to a retired military officer who worked on, according to him, UFO crash retrievals alongside Project Blue Book. This guy claimed that while Project Blue Book was running, there was a concurrent secret group that was doing retrievals on these objects. His rapid response team would go out to examine crashed and shot down UFOs before they were removed by the military. He told me that the feds had gotten hold of something that resembled a 1950s style Studebaker with the fins on the back and everything. So the feds have one of these old cars that is a UFO. This is
It's like a morphed UFO.
Well, it just looks exactly like that, but it is not a car.
Yeah.
This is
it's
exactly
a reproduction.
This is what you were describing on the Last Plus show, right?
That's right. Yep. And the last week. And last week.
You mentioned this last week as well. So I love the idea. There's like an old 1950s, maybe a convertible, but it can fly.
Yeah.
And go into space.
On the Last Plus show, we did these stories about cars that just they're UFOs, but they're kind of like copying what they think a car would be, but they don't get it right, especially for the fact that usually they're hovering and commonly have Christmas lights around the outside of them.
So he's leaning towards what you've been saying, that this phenomenon always tries to imitate and mirror the current technology of the time.
Which is drones at the moment.
Yeah, and he also adds this personal account from a man in Ecuador. He's a close friend of his who owns some acreage on one of the rural provinces. He said he was out in his yard at the front of his home one evening when he noticed what appeared to be a really large dragonfly hovering near him, like bizarrely big.
Like Cretaceous period dragonfly.
Not that big, like not Jurassic Park size, but he says it was almost within arm's reach. He got a good look at it. And he says as he watched it, he realized it wasn't organic. It was a machine. It was a machine dragonfly, clearly synthetic in manufacture. It was not a biological insect. So he goes to enter his house and this mechanical dragonfly starts chasing him. It's following him. He said he had to swat it away to get inside. His conclusion is that he was under some sort of surveillance using novel technology by unknown entities, agents, or agencies for unknown reasons. But the question Sauda asks is, well, who or what flies artificial dragonfly surveillance drones in rural Ecuador and why? Who has that technology?
Iran.
Yeah, there's a dragonfly. Oh, wait, I'm just getting word from my higher up sources in the synagogue that there's an offshore dragonfly mothership and we need to go to a war with Iran right now. Aaron, we need to mobilize the Australian infantry. So he has a couple of stories there. I'll link to it in the show notes. There was another one from a guy in the United States. I'm trying to see where he was from. He just says from the deep south. And he claims he saw a 9-inch long UPS brown in colored drone, but he says it was like just an orb, but with
the UPS sticker on the side of it.
No, he means like the brown color of the UPS. Just an orb, but it had dragonfly style wings on it.
Yeah,
it's like a flying
it doesn't
ball.
Get it quite right. It tries, but it can't do it right. It makes it actually more conspicuous.
And he said as soon as he saw it, it darted off, and it must have had like
responsive
object avoidance because it just went around a tree at the last second. He said it was clearly automated in its movements. So just a couple of interesting things to throw in there from Sauda. You know, I thought that was intriguing that he was mentioning it as well.
Look, Sauda has always had some pretty unconventional ideas, but some of the stuff he puts forward is quite grounded in comparison to, well, even on this show, what you've described. So yeah, he might be onto something.
Look, there is a final update on this whole drone thing, and I think we can put it to bed. And I'll tell you why. Because the White House has spoken. We had this from John Kirby. John Kirby is the White House National Security Communications Advisor. He claimed that many of the purported drone sightings spotted over New Jersey for the past several weeks are actually just lawfully operated manned aircraft. That's right, folks. Nothing to see here.
Okay, but
don't worry about it.
But who is lawfully operating them?
At this time, that the reported drone sightings pose a national security.
Listen to how smug he is, by the way.
Or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus. The Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are investigating these sightings, and they're working closely with state and local law enforcement to provide resources using numerous detection methods to better understand their origin. Using very sophisticated electronic detection technologies provided by federal authorities, we have not been able to, and neither have state or local law enforcement authorities, corroborate any of the reported visual sightings. To the contrary.
How can you say corroborate any of them? Any of them? This is wildly insane to claim.
I'm not
this.
surprised.
How many sightings have we just talked about on this show?
Well,
dozens, right?
Well, no, but when you think about the number of items as well, like they're saying 30, 50 of these things.
View of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft.
They probably are.
Lawfully.
Sure.
The United States Coast Guard is providing support to the state of New Jersey and has confirmed that there is no evidence of any foreign-based involvement from coastal vessels. And importantly, there are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace.
Well, that's not true.
That said, we certainly take seriously the threat.
So that's a good point,
That's
Aaron,
not true.
because the was it the commander of the Picatinny base in New Jersey, said very specifically they had 11 incursions. He put a number on it. He stated it very clear to the press.
Look,
so Kirby is
this is the same White House,
misinformed
though,
or just lying.
This is the same White House that's going for months. The president will not pardon his son. The president will not pardon his son.
I knew you were going to bring up.
And then the rest of us all get a Hunter Biden foot job.
I knew.
And I knew. How traumatized I am by that.
We weren't going to be able to go 24 hours without you bringing up Hunter Biden's juicy fat cock. It's just part of the show now.
It's just in there. Yeah, it's just in there. No, it's insane. It's insane.
Aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports, even though they have uncovered no malicious activity or intent at this particular stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight a gap in authorities. And so we urge Congress to pass important legislation that will extend and expand existing counter-drone authorities so that we are better prepared to identify and mitigate any potential threats to airports or other critical infrastructure, and so that state and local authorities are provided all the tools that they need to respond to such threats as well.
He's just a paper pushing, public servant. Like, he's just saying what he's told to say. And it's wrong.
Do you look at that guy and think he probably hasn't seen one video. He probably hasn't listened to one eyewitness report.
Well, even if he has, he's just going along with what he's told to say.
Yeah, it really, I mean, to Ross Coulthart's credit, I saw a tweet from him earlier today where he said, this is the typical pattern with UFOs.
Yep.
The activity ramps up. You have dozens
denial.
to hundreds of eyewitnesses. You have credible footage, eyewitness accounts, and the government comes out and says, sorry, folks, nothing to see here. Move on.
It's always happened that way.
And the activity dissipates and everyone forgets about it.
Yep.
But Coulthart said this time it's different. Because of the shift in the understanding of the UFO phenomenon on a wider scale in society, this time it's not going away. Because the activity is not going away. People are seeing more and more things. And now because we have social media, we can report things directly. We don't need to listen to this guy.
Well, their power's slipping as well.
Yeah, and of course no one trusts the institutions anymore.
Well, most
clearly
people don't. There's still other people that do.
But I think in the end, it was this guy that had the most direct encounter with these drones. Let's take a look.
Oh!
He died, by the way. That's pretty sad.
That's awful.
No, he's fine. He's fine. So if you just listen to the audio, that is a grown man controlling an RC plane into his head. He's flying it directly into his own head. And that's where we're going to leave today's topic. That's a wrap for this free show. Thanks for listening. Still no answers. Still no idea what's going on.
But you know what? That's actually a really great example. We'll get into the plus extension, but it is a great example of how that's why this field can be so frustrating as well, is because there are never any answers.
But after I've overlaid all that today, have your thoughts changed in any way?
No.
I think I'm still leaning towards certainly incompetence, certainly government incompetence. I don't know if I'm ready to admit that there's something non-human about this. I'm still, my gut feeling is it's warfare. My gut feeling is that it's some, it's like a very ballsy, stirring the pot of the American defense system. It's almost like penetration testing, to see how these different agencies will react to this kind of incursion.
Well, maybe that's maybe it's the actual American military themselves doing it to see how.
That's an interesting idea.
And DOGE is coming in, so maybe they're trying to see which agencies would step up and no one's doing anything. So it's like, well, you're all going to be removed.
Are you being serious?
I'm being serious. They've got to get $2 trillion cut out from the national budget.
I thought you meant the cryptocurrency.
No.
You actually mean
the
Elon
Department
Musk
of
and
Government
Vivek.
Efficiency.
Yes.
And who has the most advanced aviation technology available to him? Elon Musk.
So what are you saying exactly?
Deploy all these drones right before the inauguration happens. See how the departments respond. The ones that don't respond, gut them.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. That's novel. There's
your $2 trillion.
Well, although the argument against that is every time Elon's even working on anything, they do a video on it and roll it out and have a big press conference.
But he's not going to do that. Why would he do that? He has no need to do that because it's part of the Doge thing. So I would dare say he probably.
So you're saying they spent billions of dollars developing secret drones so they could just in case Donald Trump won the election?
Nothing so elaborate. Nothing so elaborate at all. It's like Elon Musk would have been developing aviation technologies for a long time. It's not just rocketry.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, they always reveal it. It's always big fanfare, drive up the stock price, get investors excited. They never do anything secret. It's always out there.
No, they do things secret. They have government military contracts all the time. They're working with NASA. There would be things that would come under a secrecy that Tesla wouldn't be enough.
That's a fair point.
What if they've been working on some type of drone technology that they were going to use at some point? And now the tables have turned. There's a new administration coming in. They've got to do all this gutting. Let's put these drones up.
All right. It's a novel idea. I actually really like that.
I'm leaning towards that one too now. Now
really
it actually became, after all that, I'm like, yeah, what a way to show just how incompetent these agencies are and turf them all out.
Yeah, interesting idea. The other one I didn't get a chance to mention, which I thought was credible, was that there is a real national security threat within this area. And it's nuclear related. It's some kind of, the idea of a suitcase bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And the military has launched all these drones because they're looking for it.
Yeah,
obviously they can't announce that they're doing
a suitcase,
right? They can't announce, but this is there's a serious threat. There could be nuclear weapons in multiple situations. We've all seen these scenarios painted before.
That's a possibility, yeah.
And I thought this was a really credible suggestion that that's actually what's happening. And that would explain why no agency is going, every agency is saying we don't know what it is because, they're not being told.
Too much of a threat to the populace if there's panic that gets kicked in.
That's right. So I thought that was worth mentioning as well. But we'll leave it up to you. I don't know if we'll come back to this because I know I said this last week, but I really do see this petering out.
That's what I think will happen.
Yeah, it's going to vanish like the UFO topic always does and then reemerge in other ways. But make sure you check out Plus. Once again, huge...
We're just going into hot chaff.
Huge sale.
Of hot chaff.
Sign up today, $99, 40% off MU Max. Limited time only. Sign up. Once again, 2025 will be the last year that Aaron and I host Mysterious Universe. More info to come in 2025. But lots more coming up on this episode. Remind us what you've got coming up in the Plus extension for our members.
We're going to be going into some of the Old West accounts, strange reports that people are encountering from, the mid-1800s through to the early 1930s of a phenomenon which is just of the height of strangeness, but no one really knew what it was. So they perhaps interpreted it a little bit differently to the way that we do today. So we're going to be covering some of these stories, including haunted cow experiences as well. Like
haunted cow.
The pinnacle of Plus content, haunted cow.
I might have a rope worm playing a honky-tonk piano coming up in Plus as well.
Yeah, all that stuff. All that is coming up in Plus.
All the good stuff, mysteriousuniverse.org/plus. Sign up today. Let's take a look at the sign-up page. There we go. Big discount on the MU Max special. Sign up today. You get access to the extensions we do every single Friday. And of course, Plus members get an exclusive show every single Tuesday as well. You're getting more than double the content if you sign up for Plus. And on those MU Max and MU Max special tiers we've got on offer now, you get access to the entire back catalog as well. So that's the deal to go for now that it's on sale, especially $99 for the MU Max special. Sign up today, help support your favorite show. That's a wrap for this free edition of MU. Thanks for listening. If you're on Plus, stick around for the great stuff after the break. For everyone else, we'll catch you next week for our last show of 2024.